Hello and welcome back to Pinstripe Pulse. It is now November. Yankees leadership has spoken, and boy, did they talk. We'll talk Cashman, Steinbrenner, and DFAs and more. Pinstripe Pulse. Hello and welcome back to Pinstripe Pulse. Jake, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well. The Hudson Hurricanes we won our third straight fall championship this past Sunday. So at least one team in pinstripes is doing something in the postseason. But other than that, I'm doing excellent. Feel like this is finally the time to take a rest and actually get into the off season.
Yeah, definitely. That was an exhilarating weekend. A few very close games down to the margins, but we show our consistent dominance over the course of the last few years in the fall. Now we just got to put it together in the spring, and we're fortunate that our seasons are split, so our fall success is able to be isolated. But you know, according to the Yankees execs, they think if they played a postseason, they'd be fine, right? And that's they think they're pretty fucking good, don't they?
Apparently, that quote, man, it's a tough one to read. I feel like it was partially taken out of context because I don't believe that he fully meant like the team itself was good. It sounds like Cashman was more blindly just defending his group of execs and his baseball people. I don't think he's pleased at all with the on-field product. If he is truly pleased with that on-field product and is going to defend it till the day he dies, then there's pure delusion there. There's no doubt about that. What kind of threw me off was the fact that you have Cashman being very combative and very dismissive of Joel Sherman and all the other reporters that questioned him at all. And then you have Hal Cashman, who had Hal Steinbrenner, who had a very different tone where he almost admitted defeat in a way. He just said, yes, I agree. This was an absolute travesty of a season. So it feels like there's a disconnect between the two there. Like it feels like there's definitely something going on within the front office right now where there's a rift right down the middle. And it feels like Cashman's definitely taking the grunt of the blow. It just feels like listening to that entire speech that he gave and to his presser, you can tell that he's very stressed out right now. This is probably the most stressed that we've seen Cashman going into the offseason. I can't remember a time that he's been that aggressive talking to the press.
Yeah, definitely. And the day started good. I believe these quotes are from Monday, right? Or no, were they
Yeah,
yesterday? They're from Monday?
Tuesday. Yeah,
Tuesday. Yeah, wow. It's been a long day.
Tuesday at noon. Yeah.
We're recording this on Wednesday afternoon. Hal started out great, man. Hal started out with what we wanted to hear. And I unfortunately think that's emblematic of a bigger issue, which I have my take on the whole Yankees organization. I think these quotes just show a lot about how they operate. Hal started out saying we accomplished nothing. The fans have nothing to be happy about. A winning record is nothing, is like the bare minimum. A winning record is just like staying at water, but he mentioned they didn't win a playoff series, a division, get into the playoffs, even let alone. So like when we have World Series expectations, that's obviously not good enough. So he mentioned there were going to be changes, and we've heard ad nauseum about this audit, that they're doing. One, it seems like their audit hasn't started. Two, it seems like their audit is not going to be a short-term, high-paced event. It's more going to be a review of what all of the other major league teams do, and also being introspective with what the Yankees do. But I don't know. Hal had mentioned that there might be some big changes that they think will be big. He mentioned him and Judge think will be big, not having to do with Cashman. And we'll get into Judge later too. But we might not think as big. So to me, that's already he is putting up the wall. Okay, we're gonna make changes, but you guys don't understand the changes we're gonna make. You guys can't see that. When some of that there's credence to it. Obviously, they're in the room. Well, Hal's not in the room. Hal's in Tampa, but they're in the offices. They're doing their thing. But Hal to me seemed like the front-facing executive that does the PR stuff. Okay, these are the goals. We didn't achieve our goals, and now we're going to make changes. We're going to do stuff about it. But Hal isn't empowering anything to be done about it because Hal is standing by his guy, Brian Cashman, who's the head of the baseball operations department. Um, he has no criticism of Michael Fishman, in fact, who is the head of the Yankees analytics department. In fact, the audit team is a team that was suggested by Michael Fishman. So Michael Fishman, despite his intentions, if I were Michael Fishman, I would not bring in anybody who would potentially remove me from my job or wholesale changes about my job. And not that anyone needs to be fired, though I think there are some people that we need to restructure their role in the organization potentially. Um, and we'll get to the big one that I referenced at the beginning, which I think is Brian Cashman. Um, it seems like the Yankees are doing a lot of maintaining the status quo, and Hal gave us a lot of what we want to hear. And then Cashman, I don't know if he was playing bad cop or something. He took it up with the press. A few quotes, and you mentioned with Cashman, it's like the angriest, probably the most direct we've seen. And there's the quote that's going around social media, and I'll provide the proper context. He said, "I think we're pretty fucking good, personally, and I'm proud of our people." And to your point, he's mentioning the people in management in the analytics room. This was part of a greater conversation. I'm proud of our process. I'm proud of our people. This mentioned Carlos Mendoza getting the Mets managerial job, talking about people being poached from the analytics department to other groups. And all of that is fine and good, but he was very defensive. He said they have the smallest analytics department in the American League East. So we can't be analytically driven, whereas the American League East was by far the best division in baseball last year. So, I mean, do you need more people? I don't know. Or get like our whole thing is doing better analysis. They're not analytically driven. Aaron Judge wants them to focus on RBIs and batting average. We'll talk about that. The big quote that drove me off the wall. Since Joey Gallo's left us, who's picked him up? 2 playoff teams. Sonny Gray, he's currently in the competition for a Cy Young Award. And he had said previously, I don't care what you say. It's really hard to determine who can play in New York. Really on the front foot there, but being aggressively defensive. And it was something. Usually this is a lot of nothing. That was a lot of something. What do you take from those specific quotes?
I feel like they must have had a big fight beforehand. I don't know, man. It's weird because the Joey Gallo stuff, why even bring it up? You know, that's such a puzzling one to boast about because the Dodgers got him for a bag of potato chips.
And he was awful.
That was yeah, exactly. That was an easy trade that they made midseason just to pick up some extra depth. He didn't play a single game for the Twins in the postseason.
Do you know
So
why?
what's the point of that?
Do you know why he didn't play a single game for the Twins in the postseason? Because they didn't put
Yeah.
him on the roster.
He wasn't rostered. There's a reason for that. He was fucking terrible.
Like he wasn't a bench
not
piece where situationally they didn't bring him in, like it didn't fit. You know, they made the move to get him for the year. They were the worst division winner in all of baseball. They were the worst team hosting playoff games. And he wasn't good enough for the Twins. Like, come back to me, Cashman. I mean, Joey Gallo is what you're using to defend yourself? I can name 15 names. 15, like, I can name it Clay Holmes. And he congratulated himself in their analytics for that. And it seemed like the only thing we can do analytically with player development is relievers. Taking relievers that have good metrics and Matt Blake doing something with them. But the hitting philosophy is obviously gone. Starting pitching has been tough. You know, Corey Kluber didn't do well with Jameson Taillon, had some good points with it. Showed to be decent. Jordan Montgomery, however, is on the other end. So I don't know. That's complete delusion with the Joey Gallo point.
Yeah, and I can get Sonny Gray because I think at the time, like, there's plenty of upside with, picking up a Sonny Gray. But at the same time, they tried to misuse him. They really wanted to limit the pitch mix that he was using, and he's a true guy that relies off of that two-seamer and relies off of going north, south, east, west. Like, you can't just limit him to 2 or 3 pitches. He needs to have his full arsenal, and when he got his full arsenal back with the Reds and then also this past season with the Twins, he was excellent. So there's clearly something going wrong. There's some kind of discrepancy within the Yankee system of how they delegate these guys' talent. And that's very concerning. And it just sounds like Cashman in particular, was refusing to take any kind of accountability for that.
Yeah, and there's always this term put around, can they play in New York? Can they play for the Yankees, And the context or the general assumption with that is the pressure, the media, the bright lights. But we have to look at the Yankees and their lack of success and say, maybe this player couldn't play in New York because they couldn't play in your organization because your organization wasn't setting them up. It could have been Milwaukee if they did the same tools. They would have failed there maybe too. And maybe that's where the media scrutiny rather, and our Yankee brain desperate need for short-term success all the time might be problematic towards developing a greater plan, right? And maybe that's where it steps in. But ultimately, I defend the Sonny Gray deal. It was a good deal at the time, but the Yankees coaching and development didn't put Sonny Gray in a good position to succeed for whatever reason. Some of that surely is mental, but the physical components are undeniable, like you mentioned about how they modified his pitch mix, his approach. And this is a guy who was a veteran, who was don't forget how good Sonny Gray was in Oakland. Like
He
Sonny
was a top
Gray,
five.
yeah, Sonny Gray being a top 5 Cy Young guy shouldn't be like a crazy resurgence. Like this is not a Carlos Rodon kind of thing where he was a middling pitcher to being, well above average. This is Sonny Gray, who was a certified young but like veteran pitcher who came to the Yankees, dipped at the Yankees, and then when he went to teams where they let him be Sonny Gray with the Reds, with the Twins post COVID, he's proven to be one of the best pitchers in baseball. So I stand by that trade, but I think it's an even poorer reflection on the Yankees' internal development and management, not their scouting, which Cashman talked about as well.
Yep, and I mean we've seen that also with trying to trade for and successfully trading for IKF and then trying to move him all over the field with no real plan of what he should be. He was never a shortstop to begin with. He was always a good third baseman, kind of a utility guy in the infield. And they decided to make him a full-time shortstop. And then to that same point, Cashman last night was commenting on how Peraza would have still not gotten any playing time because of guys like IKF and Donaldson and DJ LeMahieu. But all those guys were underperforming in the first half of the season. So he pretty much admitted to not trusting his youth and not allowing them to actually grow at the major league level. And that's so concerning.
Mike Lupica from the Daily News said the only thing surprising. Oh, damn, it's trying to make me log in. I lost the quote. That's so sad. I had it too. The vein of what he was saying, the only thing surprising about Cashman's presser is the amount of people who were surprised by anything. And it's that lack of, I don't know, it's our hope. It's hope as a sports fan. It's the reason that, we go to all these games and we follow this team and we watch it every day when we can see that the team's in a state of turmoil and in need of some serious rotation. And Lupica, what drew me to that article was another quote that I have from another page where he said that Steinbrenner consistently tries to act like an owner without ever taking the chance to be one. And I see this politically in a bunch of different organizations that I've worked with and been around, where you have an executive who's going to be that front-facing presence, but doesn't want to do anything about the process underneath. So he's going to answer these questions. He's going to say, this isn't good enough. He's going to say, okay, go fix your stuff. But they talked about this meeting in Tampa a few weeks ago of like, oh, we're going to be really introspective, check your ego at the door. We're going to talk about what we do. And I can't imagine that Brian Cashman was constructive in this. As someone who's facilitated improvement sessions with a bunch of different teams and whatnot, I mean, that's literally my job. I'm a process improvement engineer. I go into places that I don't know anything about. And I help them figure out what's wrong and measure and make improvements with the staff that we have. And if I had anyone in those sessions that acts the way that Brian Cashman does with his defensiveness about his team, insisting we're doing a good job. Your people are trying. Fine. Your process is broken. This is not a lack of effort kind of thing. And maybe that's, I can understand the media coming at him and striking a nerve in him. He has to do better. He's been in New York for 25 years. I can understand them striking a nerve in him because it's not for a lack of effort. Like Brian Cashman isn't just letting it happen. Hal Steinbrenner might be. He's an owner. He's a hands-off owner because Brian Cashman is a good friend. He lets Brian do everything. And I don't think it's even in Hal's head to restructure or remove Brian from what he's doing. But to take Cashman head on and demand more from him, not that Cashman needs to be fired. I think it would be best for the Yankees if he didn't have that role anymore. Don't like calling for people's jobs. But without him actually applying pressure to Cashman and Cashman having this defensive mindset, they're having this meeting. They're talking about some things we could do better, and there's going to be, if anything, marginal differences. There's going to be things like we're going to teach our minor leaguers to bunt. How much of an impact is bunting going to have on the Yankees? How many times this year were there bunt situations? You're talking about 5, 6 every year. So the difference, maybe you win a game or two, right? As a result of having 2 or 3 competent bunters. If Gleyber Torres could bunt, he'd be a marginally better player.
Yeah.
If
What
Anthony
scares me
Volpe could
about
bunt.
yeah.
I don't know.
What scares me about that is I can see the Yankees saying those 1 or 2 games is what led to the Diamondbacks, for example, being 84 and 78 and scooting on into the playoffs. I could see them settling for the bare minimum, which I really hope that's not the case. But they haven't proven anything to us in the last year to show that they're serious about actually constructing this roster to be like as good as it can be and to be as fire heavy as they can be. The benchmark for teams that they should be following right now are maybe that hybrid of teams that are willing to spend money while still having a really good farm. Look at the Rangers, look at the Braves. All those teams are, those teams, like also the Phillies, they all are top competitors right now because they have that perfect blend of seasoned veterans that are superstars and young talent that they trust enough to get out there every single day. And other than Judge and Glaber right now, like really, what do you have in terms of stability in that lineup? You don't.
Yeah. And 2 guys that you can rely on historically, you can't rely on for next year, DJ and Anthony Rizzo. And that's where the Yankees are in a really tough spot. And I don't necessarily blame the Yankees for these situations. I think you had to give DJ the contract. I think you have to work with him, build him up. Anthony Rizzo could be fluke. It's a natural part when you have these older players. Okay, now you have to supplement with youth. But you also have to know when you're giving out these contracts, who else you have. Because Cashman made another comment about Giancarlo Stanton's been good every year when he's healthy. And I'm glad that he backtracked kind of at the end of the statement. This year was the first year that wasn't applicable.
Yeah.
And maybe that's true, but also isn't a lack of health and a lack of physical capability to get consistent games going to be emblematic of form? Like, isn't that a part of, you can't just say, oh, he's been hurt every year since 2019. So he's good if he's not hurt, but you can't just say that in a vacuum when he is always hurt. So if that's the reality, if he's always hurt and he has those lags of he plays through injury, he goes down with an injury, and it takes him a month to get back from injury. So now we're talking about every year there's a 3-month process in which Giancarlo Stanton should not be expected to be a decent player. So he is a below average player, but he has to get a run of games because we can't play him on the field. So he's not very athletically stimulated. He's literally not getting his run, like physical running in the game. He's going up and he's hitting and he's striking out and he's losing sight of the ball. Like, we're going in circles here, but I think the Yankees, like, it's more so the attitude of the defensiveness and the lack of self-awareness, I feel. Because they know what's going on. They know the decisions they're making, but it's the insistence that they trust the process. Like, the process is broken. The process is what's bringing you here. The people are so smart. Like, I I am not as smart as the people in the Yankees analytics department when it comes to interpreting baseball analytics. And I'm not trying to say that I am. And I'm like, Brian, like, I don't think there's a better, more qualified, smarter general manager in American sports right now than Brian Cashman. But it is at his attitude about the current team, his emotion with the work that he's done, the lack of understanding and acceptance of failure in a new game where he has failed for the last 13 years, and a process underneath that is broken, that they won't put in the right love and care to fix it because they're too defensive to be told that what they're doing is not perfect. And I don't know how you can look at the results and not feel that you have to change or not have that competitive drive to want to change, like to be really honest with yourself. Because they're at the point where Cashman right now, and that's where I think that he needs to not be in that position anymore, because he has the attitude of, I've earned this position. I'm the Yankees GM. I'm really, really good at this. And I believe in my process and what I do. But he doesn't have that competitive drive to like be introspective in himself. Like, I don't know. For me, anytime I'm not winning or I'm failing, I look at me because I can control me. I can do what I do. You look into like how you manage people, what you manage, how you do lineups, like everything. You try to control what you can control instead of just, and that's where the bad personalities are with managers or with teammates, where it's like you try to be constructive with people and they lash out and get defensive, and when they're struggling, they just, you can't be around them. That kind of attitude, and that it seems that's
Yeah.
what the attitude that Cashman has about the Yankees, and it doesn't seem like it will be or can be progressive anytime soon.
Yeah, I don't think he's shown that he's capable of swallowing his ego in the slightest. And as an as a top exec like that, you for the greatest team in the world, the greatest franchise in the world, you have to be able to do that.
Yeah.
You have to be able to look introspectively, and it sucks. It's really just an unfortunate situation because there is a lot of talent that is coming up in this organization, and it just feels like as a fan, you can't have faith that they are going to manage them properly because they haven't shown that in the last 5 years or so. Look at all the young players and Newhars, Frazier's, Greg Birds, all these guys that had a lot of flashes of greatness. And I understand that baseball is also one of the toughest sports to play and then also break through in. But at the same time, it just feels like they don't know how to assess the talent that they have within their system and then also assess out like exterior talent. They really stick with escalation of commitment, which means they stick to one mindset or backing up one person or one ideology, even though they can tell that it's going in the wrong direction. They're just going to continue to push that ideology because they are afraid of the failure that may come with admitting that they're wrong. And that's scary because like, where do you go from here if that's the case? Like Cashman's been there for 20 years now. Do you see realistically him going anywhere anytime soon? And do you also see him changing his mindset anytime soon? I don't.
No. It's really tough. What do you think that says
Like this
about? Oh, go ahead.
like this is the most like speechless I've been about a Yankees team or a Yankees presser ever, just because I don't think any fan expected the tone to be so like amped up in the wrong way. Like I don't think anyone was expecting Cashman to immediately jump on the defense, attack fans, attack the press, attack everyone except for him and his party.
That's why I'm speechful, for lack of a better term, because
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't consider myself to be that reactive to game outcomes, to specific plays and whatnot. To me, it's like you go into an off season. This is your front office opportunity to like look at the product you've delivered. Your delivery time is over. Day to day, there are no results. Like this is time for you to build, to look at yourself. What are we doing? How can we make this a winning team next year, the next 5 years? Because we have a window. We have Aaron Judge. We have the best hitter in the world. We have Garrett Cole, top 5 pitcher in the world on our team. We have solid, decent young stars. All right. How do we round that out? We can get there. We're spending $280 million in a year, near $300 million in a year. And a lot of that is coming off our books. Luis Severino, Josh Donaldson. Like, we have money to spend. How can we be the most efficient with our dollars for this team? How can we improve our scouting? How do we make the right trades? How do we know where our prospects are? And when these teams are demanding really high values for these trades, which I'm with Brian Cashman. I think the trade market this summer was pretty terrible. Doing nothing was unfathomable. We'll go back to that. I think they should have sold, but the trade market for to acquire wasn't good. No, for what they had to give up, they were going to be fleeced. Okay, how do we better evaluate our players? Why do these teams not think our players are this good? What are they seeing that we think we see in our players? And two, how can we better get the more efficient guys? Don't just measure like the process data. Don't just measure the spin rate and whatnot. Like, how are we looking at these guys, these players, how they approach games? What are their what are their approaches? How do they pinpoint like things that you have like manual in-person scouts for on top of just the measurables to round this analysis together? Like, and it seems like they just don't want to, like, they don't want to actually see or change how they do. They're just going to keep going at the status quo. And like, frankly, maybe they change and it would be the same or it would be worse. But what's there to lose with a worse outcome? Do you really think that like doing your process, aside from just spending, maybe they just spend a bunch of money and I'll take that. We'll be the Yankees. We'll get Yamamoto and Bellinger and Candelario and everybody. And plot twist, every person in baseball thinks that Yamamoto is just going to be on their team. He's going to be one of the top pitchers in baseball. Cody Bellinger, same thing. He's going to get a big contract, and like that's kind of risky. He had a long run where he wasn't good. Candelario, how much of a difference maker is he? He's a switch hitting third baseman. Okay, sure.
Yeah.
How marginally better does that make the Yankees? They have to like position by position need to improve, need to find those players, need to develop from within. And it's the attitude that is driving me crazy. There's no results to react to, but it is just, I know that the head of this department, the head of this team that is making the decisions that can change the misery that I felt going to over 20 Yankees games last year and just sitting in apathy, he can make that exciting. But he doesn't think anything has to be different, and I'm upset. I'm upset.
Who isn't at this point, man? But yeah, you really you kind of brought everything together in the most cohesive way that I can think of. I mean, if you get Juan Soto, then that kind of immediately shuts a lot of people up, and it immediately just brings people's minds at ease because it shows that you're going after young, controllable players, and left-handed bats are one of the most prestigious, insane, just one of the best players in the league. He's right there for the taking if he is truly on the trade market, which I believe he will be. The Padres are in their own financial mess right now. There are going to be trades that will be made this offseason, and it's really up to Cashman, assuming that he's still here. There's still just a 1% like gray matter in my brain that's telling me maybe he's gone. So a very small portion of my brain wants to believe that. But if it isn't him, or if it is him still, it's really up to him to make the logical but aggressive moves that are necessary to right the ship. If that means bringing in Kevin Kiermaier to be a stopgap while Dominguez is out for a year, so be it. That's a completely reasonable acquisition in my mind. There are ways to make this thing right, but they've just taken so many seasons now where they had excellent players there for the taking. Look at your Corey Seagers. Look at any Bryce Harper. All of those guys have all been free agents that had some sort of interest in the Yankees, and the Yankees refused to entertain them. So this has to be the year. Might be the year. This has to be the year where they actually are aggressive and strike first. I'm tired of seeing just this complacency that we've been experiencing for the last few years.
Yeah, and we'll we'll do our roster building exercises and whatnot, but I think I'll transition into some of the transactions because right now is where um we've gone through the tendering contract period, and there's certain players where the Yankees did not tender contracts, and most of them, if not all, elected to go into free agency. And talking about money off the books, all right, Keenan Middleton arbitration deal, Frankie Montas in arbitration about 8 million. Wandy Peralta is technically a free agent. Luke Weaver, IKF, 7 million. Luis Severino about 17 to 20 million, right there. Like that's already adding up. Okay, you have 30 million. That's
Yep.
That's Juan Soto's arbitration deal, and then maybe you sign him long term. That obviously depends on another long contract for an outfielder that we have, or a guy that used to play outfield. Billy McKinney, Jimmy Cordero, Francie Cordero, Matt Bowman. These are all minor league deals. And Domingo Herman, of course, is gone. So that's money off the books right there. Josh Donaldson, he was already traded away, so his $25 million a year is no longer with the Yankees. Their payroll is not massive, so there's opportunity there. But I guess I'll spin that into what do you think of any of these Yankees that have gone to free agency, no longer with the team technically? Who do you think might come back or stay in the Yankees org?
There's a lot of chatter right now about Frankie Montas coming back for a 1-year deal, like a prove it deal, which if you can get him, like it has to be a cheap ass deal for me to be cool with that. But
Yeah.
at the same time, like it seems like his stuff is there. Um, Good for him for showing up for one appearance before the season ended. Um, if that's one small little minute depth piece that you pick up, sure, that's fine. That can't be the guy that you go after in free agency. Um, Other than that, man, I don't know. I like Keenan Middleton. I do like a lot. You can never have enough good bullpen arms, so I would be cool with that. It also just depends on the price. Like, I think you really need to prioritize your bats and your starting pitching because you're losing what 2 starting pitchers, essentially 3 if you include Montas, who wasn't around at all last year. Um, you need to pick up at least one reliable arm that's going to give you 30 starts a season. I still believe that Yamamoto is the best arm to go after. He is the youngest one. He's 24, 25. He's durable. He's been in the NPB and been a star in the NPB for several years now. He makes so much sense for this team and for the landscape of that pitching depth. Then if you go to the offensive side, there really isn't anyone that would be returning that I'd be interested in picking up. I think that all those guys, it's just generally a weak free agent class in terms of the positional depth, so I'm not all that intrigued by returning players.
Yeah, I'm with you. Looking at Fangraph roster resource, we're estimated to be locked in for about $242 million of payroll. And the estimated final payroll from 2023 was 273. So you're looking at about 30 million coming off the books. That included Donaldson already being gone. So the Yankees had gone up to about 290 last year. Where do you think that final payroll number ends around opening day?
I think it depends on how willing they are to sell pieces. Like they can still be buyers while at the same time trading away guys that are like Glaber, for example. He's one of our most reliable players right now. He was our second best offensive player all season. But at the same time, let's say you want to trade for a Brendan Donovan who's a switch hitter, hits really well from the left side, plays second, plays third, can kind of play all over, has more controllable years. If you can trade Glaber for pitching and then acquire a guy like Donovan, then you might offset a good bit of that salary. I'd say like I would like to see around the 240, 250 mil mark, but it's so hard to say because we don't know what the landscape of this team looks like. It's so incomplete right now. There are so many guys on the bench. Like if you look at the starting roster and what the potential starting lineup would be at this very moment, it still probably includes a Jake Bauers. Still includes a few different guys that just simply shouldn't be on this team starting significant games for the Yankees. So it has to be above 200. Like that's just a requirement. I can see them if they go full scorched earth, they can end up hitting that 300 miller near what the Coen tax is. But it's such a big ballpark right now because we have no clue what the fuck we're dealing with in terms of roster construction.
Jake Bowers is on Fangraph's opening day lineup projection. Can you guess what position he's playing?
Oof. Left field.
Left field is right. All right, I have the Fangraphs projected roster resource lineup up here for opening day. So as of right now, let's go through the lineup. Who do you think leading off?
Uh, Not Glabe. What do you? Maybe DJ at third. Of
DJ at third. He's still holding on the leadoff spot.
course he is. Got to have Judge at second.
Yeah.
Playing right field. Third can either go Glaber or Rizzo. So I'm gonna go Rizzo.
Yeah, they put
Third,
Rizzo.
playing first base. Okay. Um, Glaber cleanup, second base.
Yep.
5 through 9 is a mess. I will be sick to my stomach if it's Jake Bowers playing left field.
Jake Bowers is playing left field. He is not hitting fifth. The
Okay.
DH spot is hitting fifth. Who do they have there?
Stanton.
It's not
Is
Stanton.
it Stanton?
It's not Stanton.
This roster is. This is what I'm talking about. Like, give me a hint.
They're a catcher by trade.
Austin Wells.
Austin Wells hitting fifth, DHing. Just for his hitting skill. Which is not Austin. Like, Austin Wells is a good hitter. He's a great hitter for a catcher. That's his potential. He's not just a fifth hitter. He's not Mitch Garver.
Oh.
Like, God. Guess who's sixth? It's not Bowers. You guessed him right. Bowers is lower.
Is Peraza in there? No, Volpe.
Volpe. Volpe's at short. That's
Volpe
six.
is short. Yeah.
Gold Glove
Okay.
winner Anthony Volpe, by the way. If you look at the stats, not undeserved. Bobby Witt not being nominated in the top three is crazy. Wander Franco wins it by a mile if he's not a pedophile. So congrats, Anthony Volpe. Anyways, Jake Bowers is in left hitting seventh. Then you have the catcher position and the center fielder as your options for eighth and ninth. Who are they? And what's the order?
Trevi. It's Trevi ninth because he had like a 500 OPS season.
They had Trevi eighth.
They had Trevi eighth.
Because ninth is someone we've spoken about way too much, honestly.
Jake Bowers.
No. Jake Bowers was seventh.
They're all blending together in my brain right now. That's how like forgettable this lineup is.
Center fielder. Okay, so available on the roster, I'll give you is Higgy, Peraza, Florial. Yeah, Esteban Florial.
Yeah, it's Florial. No, they're actually choosing to opt to move Peraza to center field just to test something out.
Yep. So that's some lineup. They have Stanton on the bench with Oswaldo, as well as Higgy and Peraza. And then the starting five is Cole, Rodon, King, Clark, and Nestor. Wow. Bullpen looks decent.
I have nothing wrong with the bullpen.
Yeah.
They probably need another lefty arm or two in the pen because I feel like Wandy's a free agent, right?
Yes,
is that correct?
They only have Nick Ramirez as a lefty.
Yeah, you need some help there.
Nick Ramirez is 30.
Do not put all your money into Josh Hader, though.
Oh, no. Josh Hader will not work for New York, I think. He has attitude stuff that New York would not take to, as well as some of his old tweets. Don't dig those up. Anyways, we'll move on to you mentioned you feel decent about the rotation.
I feel decent about Kinger being like the 3. Like that's where I feel completely fine with Mike King being a full-blown starter at this rate because he earned it. The way that he ended last season was fantastic.
Well, it's probably
I've always
Nestor's
thought
the
that he
true 3, right? If he goes back to Nestor form, and then you have King as a solid 4.
it's just a big if though, because like
Yeah.
Nestor really hasn't pitched in a long time at this point, and he needs to prove that he can stay healthy. Also, in the event that we do trade for Soto, I think Nestor's one of the arms that they might look at to move potentially,
Yep.
just because the Padres do starting pitching really badly. That also includes Clark Schmidt as well. Um, yeah, there's there's so many moving parts here. Just because like I do believe Clark could be like a solid 5 or 6. He proved that this season. But at the same time, you really need Rodon to be way better than what he was this year. Like I am willing to give him the benefit of the doubt for him having his first year with this chronic back injury bothering him. Didn't really find his groove. So I can chalk that up as like a benefit of the doubt thing, but he really needs to prove that he's worth that money. Um, you can't have another season where you have a flat plus ERA and are in the Carl Pavano talks again. That just can't happen. Um,
You need Rodon to better than a 6.85 ERA.
that would be
14 games
ideal.
started.
Uh, that's like a benchmark of what I want from an ace. Uh, no, man, I don't. Yamamoto makes so much sense. I wouldn't mind like a Blake Snell either, but he's going to cost like a decent amount of money, and he's also on the older side. Um, like there are starting pitchers out there that you can get. Stroman's out there. I don't think he's a great fit for the Yankees just because of all the beef that they've had throughout the years. But he is a reliable starting pitcher at this point. Um, there are arms. They just need to make the right moves. But I think the focus truly has to be the lineup at this point.
I have a list here of pitchers. You give me a vote on yes or no whether you consider them,
Yeah,
and then we'll rank a few. Yamamoto,
easy yes.
Nola,
I'll consider because he did perform in the postseason this year pretty well.
Snell,
Yes,
Monty.
but would he consider us?
They loved New York. They did before he left.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing is like he loved it, but at the same time they wouldn't let him get through 5+ innings.
Sonny Gray.
I No, because we've been there before, and like this is more for Sonny's sake than for Yankees' sake.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
We said no to Hater. How about Charlie Morton?
no,
Yeah. Lucas Giolito,
no,
Jack Flaherty.
no. Like these are guys that if you trade away like a Clark Schmidt and then trade away like a Nestor, I could see them slotting in as a 5 or 6 on maybe like a 1 year deal, but I'm not giving them a ton of money.
And that's the thing where they're free agents now, so they're going to be demanding money. So
Exactly.
so we're looking at only the top tier, and then the bottom drops off quickly. We're looking at Yamamoto, Nola, Snell, Montgomery. They're the only 4. Eduardo Rodriguez, maybe. How do you feel
Erod,
about
yeah,
what?
that's a compelling one. That's an interesting one. And he said that he has no restraints on like anything geographically. So like he's down to play in whatever market wants him.
Yeah, he opted out of his deal with 3 years, 49 left on his deal with Detroit. So you're looking at, that's pretty favorable, anyways.
Yeah,
But you're looking at having to pay him more than 50 million, more than 3 years, and 2024 will be his age 31 season. So that's not too bad.
not awful, man.
Montgomery, Snell, Nola are all 31, I believe. And Yamamoto
Yeah,
is that one potential ace at 25 years old from Japan.
you got to get Yamamoto. Like there shouldn't be a debate here, unless you're hitting the trade market and you're trying to trade for an ace out there that no one's talking about right now, which could always be the case. Like there's always random blockbusters, especially with everything going on with the Brewers right now. Um, I could see something like that happening, but I don't know if the Yankees are going to be heavy in that mix.
Yep. Um, I just saw 3 different articles about teams that expect Yamamoto to sign with them. 3 different teams. So that's where we're at. You're gonna have to get competitive, and competitive is money. And we'll see if the Yankees are willing to do
Yeah,
that.
I mean, they flew out to Japan to watch him pitch a perfect game. Like they know what his ceiling looks like, and he's done it on the big stage in the WBC. This is a guy that would fit perfectly in New York City, and it would really hurt if the Mets ended up going out there and getting him, and the Yankees could have offered a competitive offer and just didn't. You know, I don't see them letting him go by because he makes way too much sense being a young, controllable starter that could be serviceable for like 8 to 10 years.
Yamamoto needs to give like 5% of his contract to Kodai Senga. Because Senga got a very favorable deal with the Mets, who were willing to spend big. But we looked at it and we were like, oh wow, like I would take that deal. The only thing was the years. Um, and Yamamoto is a better player, but for Senga to have the year that he did, potential rookie of the year, he's gonna get some fringe Cy Young votes. You know, maybe he might be top 10 in NL Cy Young, and he had a rocky start, um, especially on the road to start the year. Uh, Senga proved that he could do it, and he was the second best pitcher in the NPB last year before Yamamoto. Sorry, after Yamamoto rather. So Yamamoto coming out, he's gonna make triple what Senga made, and that's a combination of Tanaka's legacy and inflation, as well as Senga proving that it transferred over and he can compete. And yeah, again, Senga wasn't even in that rotation with the WBC team for Japan because he had just signed with the Mets. So you're talking about Yamamoto, Shohei, and I forget who the third. Who was their third? He's pretty good too.
Sasaki? Was it? No.
Oh, look at the roster. We're not going to try and guess Japanese names right now on on the mic.
Well, if it's the guy that if I don't know if Sasaki was playing for the WBC, but I know he's like one of the best young pitchers to come out of there.
Yep.
And he's too young to be posted right now.
Yep. So yeah, we'll do our roster game, but there might be slim pickings. The Yankees are gonna have to get creative. And when we talk more marginal moves, we have to address Sean Casey. His contract was up with the Yankees. He signed a 2.5 month contract to be the hitting coach, going back to family considerations. And the Yankees are now offering the hitting coach position to James Rowson. According to Joel Sherman of the New York Post, Rowson was the minor league hitting coordinator with the Yankees in the late 2000s. And then he was also one of the heads in the ranks. He came back after being with the Cubs for a while, developing their system pretty well, notably in the minor leagues while he was with the Cubs. Chris Bryant, Anthony Rizzo, Javier Baez. So maybe those didn't age the best, but they worked early on. And then he was with the Yankees from 2014 to 16, which was Aaron Judge's time uh, in the minor leagues, really, because he got drafted in 2013. So what do you think of the Yankees offering this position? Do you think anything of it?
I mean, Judge apparently really likes him. We may not see the immediate results. It's so hard to gauge with hitting coaches how effective they are. The biggest thing with Dylan Lawson is you were hearing his name way too much when he was the hitting coach for the Yankees, because that meant that there was another kind of rift where he just wasn't meshing well with the players. And it just seemed like there was a disconnect between the way that he was articulating hitting with the players, and it was maybe like a little bit too new school for their liking. Um, it sounds like this dude has like the perfect kind of relationship with the minor leagues in the Yankee system to kind of get right back into it. He was with the Tigers this year, who I believe they didn't have the best offense, but they had a few really strong offensive pieces. So we got to watch Kerry Carpenter up close. There are definitely things to be excited about there, but it's not going to be something that has me on the edge of my seat waiting to see what he does on the field. You know, it's just going to be one of those low key, under the radar moves that happens.
Yeah, and my initial concern was Rawson was an MLB player, and it seemed like that's what the Yankees hitters kind of wanted to be in the room with them. Dylan Lawson's approach wasn't necessarily working. The difference with Rawson is that Lawson came from a collegiate hitting background and very analytical background. Rawson, I imagine, is also pretty analytical. Despite what Aaron Judge might tell you, his swing and his talent is very conducive to analytical performance, that being an appropriate amount of launch angle, swing path, and obviously exit velocity, of course. But I think that's kind of built into his body. Rawson was a minor league player. He spent a lot of time, not just as a coach in the minor league and major league systems for the Cubs, Twins, Marlins, and Tigers. But he was a professional player as well. And that's where the crux of his hitting philosophy comes from, being a pro. So I think he'll be a lot more respected. Local guy. So I hope that makes somewhat of a difference. But we'll see and who knows what hitting coaches really do. I mean, Aaron Judge liking the hitting coach is a far cry from where we were previously. So Judge will at least accelerate and develop a plan with hitters. Maybe Judge is involved in that hitting process. And if players don't take a liking to Rawson, Judge will help kind of bridge that relationship a bit. So hopefully the Yankees have a cohesive plan, and there's good hitter introspection and development within the professional team. Also, they hope that his top-down approach can, permeate the minor league system in a sense. I know that we mentioned the bunting and whatnot, but creating a major league philosophy that goes into the development of the minor league players, that is a lot different than what Dylan Lawson had implemented for the past few years. So hopefully that is successful, but we'll only see that in a few years' time. Yankees lost another coach in Carlos Mendoza to the Mets. Any thoughts about the loss of Mendoza or the hiring of a new bench coach?
I mean, he was well respected throughout the industry. I know the Yankees liked him a good bit, but at the same time, I think it also ties into that bigger conversation of the whole Craig Counsell situation, with Craig Counsell just going to the Cubs out of nowhere. There were all these reports stirring up a few days ago that Craig Counsell was being courted by the Mets and a few other teams, and then it came out that he wasn't going to the Mets, but he was going to go to another team that had a manager currently in the position. And then a few minutes later, it came out that he was signing with the Cubs for this generational deal of 5 years, $40 million, so $8 million a year, which is a crazy amount of money for a manager. I think that's by far the highest salary for a manager in the MLB. There's a lot going on there. And that also leaves David Ross without a job. He was the current, but now the former Chicago Cubs manager. So it's interesting to see if he might be willing to accept some sort of bench coach position, in which case the Yankees should absolutely go for him because he is a former player and he does seem to get along really well. He was directly tied with Anthony Rizzo. They were on that 2016 World Series team together. In which case I think that would be awesome. I'm happy for Mendoza, I guess. Like I don't have any strong feelings for him going to the Mets because apparently for the longest time it was rumored that he was going to end up being a manager somewhere. It happened this year. So good for him, but I'm more interested to see what happens with David Ross and all the other openings that are out in the league.
Such a messed up situation. Do you think that Craig Counsell had more of an impact on the Brewers than IKF had on the Yankees last year?
100%.
So,
positive impact. I think that he probably helped them win a few more games. Like, I think that IKF might have helped the Yankees win a couple games, but he also definitely helped them lose a few games at the same time. Not to his fault necessarily, just the fact that he was playing a position that wasn't his to play.
I wonder if Craig Counsell, basically the point is Craig Counsell's coaching war greater than IKF's player war? That's funny that we rehashed this joke. I was joking with Jake over the weekend about coaching war because I did not play in our games, but my base coaching war was hopefully above a little bit above zero, though I put us in some precarious situations that worked out, I think. But
I don't think we lost any runs from your calls. I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
Could have gotten dicey real quick though.
Yeah, for sure. Any other thoughts, general thoughts before we get off?
Um, the GM meetings are going on right now, so I don't know how long those stretch out for, but those should be interesting because I know there's a lot of traction right now between certain players that are attending. Like I know, um, what's his name? Third baseman Matt Chapman is currently there talking to a few teams. I've seen alleged interest from the Yankees and alleged interest from like the Giants as well, but who knows? I wouldn't love to sign him to a bigger deal because he is closer to 30 at this point, and his offense, he started great last year, but then he kind of tapered off. You're looking at like a 105, maybe 110 OPS plus type of player. So like you definitely don't want to necessarily give him 100 mil a year or 100 mil
Lot of
per
strikeouts.
contract. Yeah, a lot of strikeouts, really good defense, but there's other ways to supplement. Just trust Peraza, man. If you're going to do that, just trust Peraza.
Yeah.
There's really not much to say.
All right, I think our next episode or two we'll start predicting and building our roster. Because the Yankees are going to start making moves soon. Hopefully. We'll see how, but MLB recently has been making some moves earlier in the offseason. Hopefully we see that more teams being willing to spend money. And I think it's slim pickings in the free agent market. So the teams that act quickly hopefully get rewarded. Hopefully the players want to lock up some deals early on. But we have a lot of agents who are looking to get their bag as well as the players. So we'll see where we get to, but we'll give you what we would do with the money that we don't have or decide what happens to. But of course we have a lot of input as always, right, Jake?
Oh, for sure. And expect the trade market to heat up. That's one thing I'll say.
Yep. All right. But for now, thanks for listening. Wherever you get your podcasts and your shows, make sure to give us a follow on Instagram, and definitely Twitter will be active with all of the rumors and the news that goes through. And you will hear from us hopefully very soon. Let's go, Yankees.